You're listening to The Black Woman in the Corner Office, the podcast for women who lead, influence, and carry a whole lot more than what shows up in their title. I'm your host, Dr. Ebony Stone, and each week we talk leadership, power, community, and what it really takes to rise without losing yourself. If this conversation resonates, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Okay. Hello, and welcome to the Black Woman in the Corner Office. I'm your host, Dr. Ebony Stone, and I am delighted today to have a very special guest with me. I'm getting ready to introduce to you, or ask her to introduce to you herself, Ms. Robin Kinney. But before I do that, I want to tell you why this guest is special to me. Really, one of the reasons that the Black Woman in the Corner Office podcast and the Power of the Pause audiobook exists is because of Robin. Without Robin, none of this would be here. She has been amazing as a coach and a mentor to work with, as an audio engineer to get the audiobook out for me. So I am just so incredibly thankful for Robin. Robin, welcome today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ebony. And it was an honor and my pleasure to be part of their journey of bringing the podcast and your audiobook to fruition.
Thank you. Thank you. So why don't you tell our viewers, you probably will do more justice to it than I will, about Motor City Woman Studios and Audio Engineers of Detroit, that you run, both of those of which you lead. So why don't you tell us a little bit about those?
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to join you today. I'm excited because I love having conversations, and really that's where my story begins. I grew up as a native Detroiter, and I have fond memories of hearing Martha Jean the Queen while riding in my mom's red Ford Tempo in the 80s. And that's where my story began, really, listening to this Black woman who not only hosted her own radio show, but eventually owned the radio station, which was unheard of in that time. So that's where the seed was planted for my love of broadcast, which then evolved into podcasting, and the love of audio in general, and understanding the power of our words. So over the years, I first started with Motor City Woman, which in 2016 started as a digital radio station, which sought to just elevate the voices of women. And we did that by giving women the opportunity to have their own shows. And they talked about a variety of topics. Over the years, that has gone on to become an audio post-production company where we're supporting women-led podcasts from all over the country. In 2021, we opened Audio Engineers of Detroit, which is a recording studio right here in Midtown Detroit, as well as an audio engineering trade school. So that company really focuses on creating the next generation of audio and broadcast engineering professionals. So, a common thread in my story and, kind of my career has been community, uplifting community, amplifying the voices of community, and then supporting that community for access to jobs and employment, but also really creating the creators so that we have ownership of media, which is very important, especially right now.
Absolutely. So listen, you guys, I'm going to tell a little story. I hope that's okay. So this season, we are talking about community, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, Robin. So Robin and I recorded this episode to be aired in season 1. And I am at home working, through all of the things, and we recorded, and the conversation was great. And then in post-production, we kept hearing this voice say, Bluetooth connected. Bluetooth disconnected. And nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows where that came from, why it was in the audio, right? We couldn't get it out. And I said to Robin, but maybe. So I recorded, I think we put out 22 episodes. I recorded like 25 last season. Robin's was the only one that could not be put out. The others were just saved for this season, right? But Robin's just could not be put out. And I'm like, how is this possible with the audio engineer, the person that does podcasts all the time, the person that has helped me with my audiobook, but I think everything is in divine order.
Yes.
And I think that guy was like, no, this conversation is not for season 1 because it would have been out. Yeah, I think it was for season 2 because you talked about building community. So I really just want to push in there a little bit.
Okay.
So I wanted to share that story, right? But before we get into building community, I want to take a step back and talk a little bit about prior to Motor City Woman Studios, what your career journey kind of looked like between the forward tempo, right? And if you're from Detroit, you know Martha Jean. Like there's no way you're from Detroit and you don't know Martha Jean the Queen, right? But between riding in your mom's forward tempo and when you started Motor City Woman Studios, tell us a little bit about what that career journey looked like and if there were obstacles that you hit along the way.
Sure. Well, my career started with me coming back home to the city in early 2000s after college, and really having a career in business and economic development. I always had a passion of working in my community. That was just something that was instilled in me by my mother. I grew up seeing my mother wash, iron, and give away clothes and volunteer in events. So it was just natural for me, for my first job, which I was an AmeriCorps intern, to be at a nonprofit organization on the east side of Detroit. And my job was to go door to door to the businesses within our business district and ask them questions about what they needed, what were some of their pain points. So that really helped me to understand entrepreneurship, but also helped me to understand networking and the collective strength of a business district. So I started with helping people start their own businesses, grow their businesses. And I'll say in the midst of all that, I thought of, gosh, wouldn't it be great if I could match my love of broadcasting, radio, and a business, but I wasn't even sure what that looked like. Here I was in my 20s, early 30s. And when I would listen to the radio, most of the shows weren't led by women. Now, this is early podcast days. Right. And I was like, gosh, that's what I really want to lean into. It's like the light bulb went out. Like, what if you had a radio network? It was called the Motor City Woman Radio Network, all women. And we're just talking about a variety of topics. And it really started right there.
So tell me, I got to go back to the door to door, right? I can't even imagine. I don't know. I guess because I know Robin Kinney now. Like, I don't see door to door Robin Kinney, right? Tell me, how was that? Did you experience any obstacles in that, or was it just kind of a stepping stone to where you are today?
Well, you said you can't imagine Robin Kinney going door to door. Oh gosh, I couldn't either. When they told me I had to do that, I was petrified. It's like my mother was like, "You're going to be doing what?" And I knew that was part of my job. And I had a woman who hired me, who was the executive director of the organization. And I always like to speak her name anytime I can. Her name was Diana Stewart. And Diana Stewart played an integral part in who you see before you today. She took this shy, unsure young woman and really molded me and crafted me and taught me so many lessons that had nothing to do with my job per se, but just in personal development. So as I'm in that role, she was someone who just instilled like, oh, I know you can do it. Oh, you can do it. So anytime there was like self-doubt that came up into my head, she was like, oh, Robin, you can do that. Just go and do it. So when you're like, oh, I can't see Robin, I had to do it. I had someone who was just like, oh, you can just go and do it. It's like, it's not a big deal. Get out of your head. So a
Yeah.
lot of those things that I learned then, I'm like, now, like things that you ruminate on and think about, you could have been and done it.
Yeah.
Just get out of your head and just do it.
Let's
So
do it.
in that environment, even if I had an obstacle, I had the mental strength to sit down and say, okay, what do we need to accomplish this? Do we need to look at this in a different way? Do we need to collaborate with another organization that is already doing this work? Because it can be done. It can be done. So that really helped me, and she really helped me along that path with overcoming some of those initial obstacles and just building a career.
Yes, I love that for you because you had someone cheering you on. And I think that is so important in our world, especially today,
Yes.
when we are literally feeling targeted. Not feeling targeted, we are targeted.
Are targeted.
Black women, we just are targeted. And I think it's so important to have someone in your corner. And they don't always have to be a Black woman, but it is so helpful to have a Black woman in your corner because you don't have to explain what it is to just exist in the world, right? She understands.
Right. Yeah.
So this question just popped in my head off.
Okay. I love questions that pop in the heads.
Which is, and I was asked this question recently, but what is your advice for someone who does not have that boss, right? The boss is not playing also the role of a mentor. The boss is not necessarily discouraging, but they're not encouraging. And they're looking for someone or something to assist them in building confidence and becoming the woman that they know deep down inside they can be. What advice do you have for that young woman in that space? Or maybe not even a young woman, maybe she's a woman mid-career looking.
Sure, for sure. Especially right now, you see a lot of mid-career women we now have the space, and especially during the pandemic, of, okay, what do I really want to do? What makes me happy? How can I contribute to my community, to this world, to my legacy? For anyone who you're in a position, you're in a space, you're in a season, and you don't have someone who is cheering you on, who physically is giving you, that inspiration. Social media has made it so easy to have mentors in your head. When people say, oh, you were my friend in my head, like, oh, Oprah and I, we've been besties for decades. Never met her. I've been in the same room as her, but never had the chance to meet her. But following someone's trajectory of their career is very easy right now. So I would advise anyone, if you're, in that season where you're like, I'm just not sure, I'm not really being poured into at work, anywhere, you have to create that community because it exists. It exists. And the community that you're seeking is also seeking you. It's just about sometimes getting out of your comfort zone and going into rooms that maybe you have not explored yet. Maybe that's the community that's waiting for you.
Before we continue, if you've ever felt the pressure to perform, produce, and prove while carrying everything else, I wrote The Power of the Pause for you. It's a practical guide to leading with clarity instead of burnout, and it's available now, along with corner office apparel designed for women who mean business. Check the show notes for your link so you can get your copy or you can get your t-shirt. Oh, And if your organization is looking for a host, facilitator, or speaker who understands leadership and lived experience, you can book me directly at drebonystone.com. All right, let's get back to the conversation. Yes, I love that. The community that you are seeking is also waiting for you. That is so incredibly true. Thank you so much for that. I also love that you mentioned the using social media for good, right? And not just doom scrolling, but maybe finding your community. Okay, so let's get back to Motor City Women Studios. I'm going to tell you guys another funny story, right? Okay. I worked with Robin and her team to create the audiobook, The Power of the Pause, and I had no clue what I was doing. And Robin was such a professional. I was just like, yeah, we're just going to, we're going to keep doing this. We're not going to come back tomorrow. And she was like, yeah, nope, you're not coming back tomorrow. And I'm like, well, why not? I took the week off. And she's like, your voice needs to rest, right? So many things that I didn't even think of. But when you started Motor City Women's Studios, what was the catalyst for starting it? And then walk us through that journey from there to Audio Engineers of Detroit and where you are today.
Sure. So Motor City Women's Studios, the actual physical space, I remember signing the lease while pregnant with my third child. So when I say I've had a non-traditional journey, I've had a non-traditional entrepreneur journey, especially. I had two little ones at home, pregnant with my third child. And I was like, gosh, I'm so excited. We're going to have our first physical space. And it was born out of that goal of having a radio station or a space to create, I'll say, that focuses on women, that seeks to elevate and amplify the voices of women. That really was the baseline of what we're doing here, why it's important. I see the lack of women on the microphone. And again, podcasts had picked up, but not really that much, in the state of Michigan. So I was there to not only educate people about what a podcast was, how to podcast, but I call it the hashtag power of podcasting. With podcasting, now you have the opportunity to share your story, to share a resource globally in an instant. And you didn't have to go through, a federal agency like the FCC and the radio station. You can upload an episode and someone clear across the globe could be listening to it within minutes. That's powerful. That's really powerful. So that's really what I focused on and what I communicated to people who were interested. So that's where our story started, with getting those stories out, giving people a space to create. We handle all of the post-production. That was something that really took that burden off of people. When people are like, oh, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. That's where we came in, because we understood that was a barrier for a lot of people. Most people aren't trying to learn how to edit. They want to share their story. And I think there would be more podcasts and more stories if it was easier to get your story out there. But that's where the company really evolved into, is supporting people in getting their stories out there. I remember an audiobook, I'll say it was like a podcast audiobook that we did, one of our first ones that was bilingual. And being so proud of that, because that project is now heard all over the world. And when I, talk to the author, I'm just so proud of her. And then I'm proud that we were part of that journey of bringing that to life. So we're doing Motor City Woman, and then the pandemic hits. I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm in the studio working, and I get a phone call from my kids' school saying, oh, school's going to be let out early, but they'll be home in 2 weeks. Don't worry about it. Then I see our governor do a press conference saying, stay home. Then I get a call from my husband and think you should come home. And then I get a call from a friend. Do you have any toilet paper? So it was just like so much going on. And so, yeah, I went home, and as anyone knows, we were home for 2 years. However, we had plans to open Audio Engineers of Detroit, and that was pushed back. That was scheduled to open the spring of 2020. It was a blessing in disguise. Yeah, that was scheduled to open the spring of 2020, and we were just like, okay, that's not going to happen. All righty.
No, I remember those calls. Listen, I'll never forget. It was March 12th, 2020. I'll never forget it. It was March 12th, 2020. But Robin, I stopped at Sam's Club on my way home. So
Did you?
I was the one that had the store. I had the toilet
paper
for anybody that needed it. So what was it like to just kind of I don't want to say put your dream on hold, but to have literally that hurdle of the pandemic put in your space when your studio, it was a physical space that you were looking to build that you could know, like you can't bring everybody into your home. Right. So what was that like?
See, that's the thing, Dr. Ebony. It didn't put my dream on hold. It refined it. You know, being home for that time forced me to really look at the operations of our companies. During that time, I launched a digital course for people who wanted to learn how to podcast from their home. During that time, our out-of-state clients, you know, went through the roof, and inquiries went through the roof. During that time, we launched the Motor City Woman podcast, the Motor City Planner for podcasters. So we started looking into products and not just services. And that was really important for any entrepreneur in the service business. You want to try to have a complementary product that then you can ship anywhere, you know, and that people can buy while you're asleep. Because during that 2 years, we still had bills, you know, we still had overhead. And so, yeah,
because the rent didn't stop.
It sure did. And I remember negotiating with landlords. Yeah, all of that. I still had rent to pay. And so it really refined my vision. And it really helped me to look at, okay, what are some other ways that this company can make money outside of being a physical recording studio? So I learned a lot during that period.
Yes, and let's not forget, you're doing all of that with 3 children now, because you have an infant at home. Like that just
homeschooling.
Blows my mind, because I was trying to work and homeschool and didn't have an infant. You throw an infant in there.
Yeah.
I could not even imagine.
At that point, he was 4. Yeah.
I can't. Oh, he was 4. Okay. So
he started kindergarten during the pandemic, you know, towards the end of the pandemic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I remember him starting virtually and then him going to a classroom space at kindergarten. Yeah.
How was that for him? I can't, you know, when I think about it, my children were in very transitional spaces when the pandemic hit. And I know what that did to their educational journey, being in 6th and 9th grade when the pandemic hit. I can't imagine kindergarten. Like, I'm just, you know, I've been looking forward to it. Everybody else gets to go to their first day of kindergarten, and I get to get up and get on a computer.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. How did that impact you and the work that you were doing, dealing with essentially a older toddler?
Right.
Learn.
I had to go with the flow. Go with the flow. That's you know, I'm really agile. Okay. You know, if this doesn't work, okay, let's try this. Let's try that. And I remember being, working from my dining room table and being in meetings, and, there'll be a random kid that walk by. And I remember I had to remind someone, hey, we're working in their home. They're not
Correct.
walking through our office. Okay. So that
Correct.
mindset shift of we're all doing the best that we can. It is what it is. I'm not going to act like I don't have children. I'm working from home and there's children here. So I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to be professional. But I think that's something that women can struggle with.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of stories where women say, oh, they want us to work like we don't have kids, and they want us to mother like we don't work. And that's where
Mm,
you can get overwhelmed, and you can, a lot of issues can come up when those two very important aspects of your life aren't in harmony. And that, it takes a lot of work to get it there. But that was just the truth. I would tell people, hey, we're working in their home. Okay.
yes.
And I'm going to do what I can, of course, for them to be quiet. It wasn't complete chaos, but yeah,
Right.
there will be times where I say, give me a second, someone's asking for juice or whatever, and I'll come back. So yeah, I think it was fine. I think I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about running a company
Yes.
from your home. I learned all of that. So I wouldn't give anything. Maya Angelou, I wouldn't give nothing for my journey now. I wouldn't give
Yeah.
nothing for that. That was a distressing period. I lost someone who was very important to me, one of my high
Mm,
school mentors,
so sorry.
Brenda Perriman, and I was devastated. So I was dealing with a lot at that time. So I had to really lean into my faith, lean into my community to get me through that time.
Yes. I think your framing is so important. Um, I'm working in their home, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's my home, but it is not my home alone. It is
Right.
also their home. And so I think your framing is important of answering that dichotomous experience that you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, folks wanting us to work as if we don't have children and mother as if we don't have work, right? No,
And
that's
I
not.
think that's where women are like, they get, we get frazzled or we get overwhelmed. That's where, depression can come in because you want to do both. You want to show up, of course, as a professional in the workplace. You want to do your best and all of those accolades.
Mhm.
But you also have these humans who you've brought into this world, who are looking to you to
Yes,
shape and mold them. That's
yes,
a lot of pressure. And it is just like, I was looking at something and I was like, gosh, I hope women have the support they need um, in this time, because there's just so many distractions right now. And
so many.
so this podcast is really should be like required listening for
Thank
women
you.
in that, and you're welcome, in that midlife. I'm midlife in it, and in a career with children where everything is important. You can't say, oh, well, I'll get to that, that's not as important. No, when everything is important, you really have to have the mental space, the community, the outlet. One thing I see that a lot of people don't have, which is unfortunate, is an outlet, a hobby, an activity. One of my favorite questions to ask people at a networking event is, what do you do for fun?
Yeah,
If
and
you
people
don't
kind of
have
stare at you
some,
like,
yeah, if you don't have something, that's a recipe for disaster, because
yes,
stress is going to come. Stress is part of our daily lives now, and not having an outlet, whether it's walking, I like to walk in my neighborhood, or if you like to volunteer, there's a ton of organizations that you can volunteer at that are in need of volunteers. Just something that gets you out of your head is
yes.
important.
Last time we talked about this. Gardening is huge for me. something about connecting, just
Mm-hmm.
connecting with the earth, right? I've always, it's funny because when I look back over my life, there were things that I was doing even as a child
Wow.
that would have pointed to my love for gardening, right? I always like to play in the dirt. I just
Mm.
always love to play in the dirt. I'm always barefoot outside. My mom was
Yeah.
like, "You're just gonna tear your feet up," and I'm like,
And
"No,
you
I'm
were
not."
loving it.
Yes, right. So gardening is huge for
Yeah.
me. I also love to dance, love to travel. Haven't done as much of that the last couple of years, but I'll get back to it. But to your point, when you ask people that,
Yeah.
they kind of just stare off
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I don't know.
Maybe read.
Yeah. You're like, well, what's your favorite book? Or what are you reading? And they're like,
Yeah. I
I
haven't read in a
don't know.
while. You're like, oh gosh, come
Yeah.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I support that. If you are listening and you don't have a hobby, girl, go find one. Like
And
get your
it's so easy to, Parks and Rec, no matter what city you live in, there's a Parks and Rec department and they
yep.
have free or low cost workshops, sewing. I went to a belly dancing class. So every quarter I try to do something different, try to get myself out of my comfort zone and just be silly because you need that balance in your life.
Yeah, because if you don't like it, you went one time. Just don't go
You went
back.
one time.
This is not that
That's
big a
it.
deal.
It's like $25. Like,
Right.
it's
My
okay.
mom just took a computer. I, I I don't know if it was computer. Like it was just I don't know what they called it, but they were teaching seniors to use their computers and cell phones and that type of thing. Like her first homework assignment was to take a
Okay.
selfie. I thought it was
Okay.
so cool, right? Um,
That's cute.
but my mom was like, I really didn't learn much because she is, to be her age, I think pretty technically savvy. She needs some help with
Hmm.
some of the more advanced things, but pretty
Okay.
technically savvy. But she had a blast
I'm
just
sure.
with one of the people that she met in the class. Like she would come home and talk about how they laughed together
Hmm.
about some of the other things that were going on in the class. And so sometimes maybe it's not even the subject of the workshop or the class or the space that you go to, but you meet people that are
Hmm.
like-minded. And I think
Yeah.
that is important too, to
Yeah.
allow you to release.
Yeah. And
Um,
you really hit the nail on the head. There was a study that came out that says, although we're living in the most connected time of our lives, the rate of loneliness has skyrocketed
mhm.
because we've relied on screens for connection when we really need to get back to the basics of just hanging out with people. Let's just experience something together. Let's be alone together,
Yes,
and as humans, we need that.
being in physical space together. So before we started recording, that's one of the things that we talked about, right? This season kicked off with people being physically in space together, us doing a podcast, not just two people talking and you listening later, but a panel discussion with an audience and people being in space together. And we'll be doing more of that because I think it's important for people to come together. It's cool to listen and learn, and I love the podcast. And to your point, the podcast, I think the last time I checked, had been listened to in like 25 different countries, which blew
Lovely.
my mind. I was like, wait, what? People are listening to me on the other side of the world? So yes, the technology gives us the ability to connect with people that we wouldn't typically be able to connect with on other sides of the world. But when we can connect with people physically, I think it's important that we
Yes.
do, that we come together. So back to you and people coming together. I know that Audio Engineers of Detroit teaches people about becoming audio engineers. You run camps and
Hmm.
workshops, and y'all, let me tell you, this space is amazing. Like I walked into the space and I was like, oh, don't touch nothing. Gotta be a whole lot of money in here. Don't touch nothing, right? But talk to me a little bit about that space and that community that you're building there. Now that we're out of the pandemic, we're back to a new normal, I guess, and you are running courses and running camps and running workshops and recording podcasts and doing all of those things in person. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. You know, when we opened our doors in 2021, our focus was on creating a space that our community could utilize, but also a space that teaches our community how to utilize it and to look at it as a career path. So the 52-week curriculum focuses on everything from working in a studio, a live sound venue, let's say a hotel, a concert venue, going on the road, but also working for yourself as a music producer. So there's so many different career pathways when it comes to audio and broadcast that we wanted to educate the community on, because these are lucrative careers. And you know, the basic degree you need for some is either a bachelor's degree, which goes into our collaboration with Ferris State University. But some of these local concert venues and event venues, you really just need a GED and the experience. And so we wanted to make sure that our community, you know, the people who we know and the people who we know have the skills and the talent, but really just need the access. And that's where we wanted to fill in that gap between employers who are looking for people with the skill set and people who have an interest in this career but really don't know how to get there. So, you know, the Audio Engineers of Detroit, we are celebrating our 5-year anniversary this summer, which I'm so excited about. We started off on the studio side. Thank you so much. It's been a journey on the studio side, focusing on music, but over the years we've produced audiobooks like yours, of course, audio for film. One of my favorite projects was for the Detroit Institute of Arts, where the Van Gogh in Detroit exhibit, when they had their Detroit stop, when you go into the museum and you put those headphones on and you hear someone reading and giving context to a work of art, part of that was recorded at Audio Engineers of Detroit. And it was just such a proud moment for us, because it felt like the work that we were doing in our tiny studio was now reverberating, you know, and now all these people from across the state was listening to these stories that were captured at Audio Engineers of Detroit. So it continues to evolve. And I would say to any entrepreneur who's out there, be open to your business not looking like how you initially thought it would look like. You know, so focus on the mission. The mission doesn't change. The mission of, or we say, creating the creators, creating the next generation of audio and broadcast professionals. That doesn't change. But what does change and what shifts, I'll say, and what flows is how we do that. And, you know, having that type of freedom to say, gosh, I never thought of that before. And getting those types of phone calls. Hey, do you do this? Do you do that? I'm like, we can. I'm sure we could figure it out.
Yes.
And that's what has gotten, you know, I think us here is we've been open. And when I say we, I'm talking about my partner and husband, Mike Kinney, who's the co-founder or who's the founder of Audio Engineers of Detroit and the vice president. We've been open to how we get there, and we've just remained fluid, but keeping the mission and the vision intact.
I love that. Not just for entrepreneurs, but for people in life, right? What is your vision for your life, right? What vision has God downloaded into you? And sometimes you got to be open to shifting from how you're executing, right? I think we've had this conversation, and I know I've said it multiple times on this podcast. I had a great career in the first part of my life, right? Leading up to 50 years old, worked with great people, did great things, climbed the ladder, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just time for a shift. And sometimes God is looking for you to do something else, right? Sometimes it's not an indictment on the past. It's just time to move into a different future. And I think that is okay. And I love the way you put that, right? The vision doesn't change, right?
Right.
My vision for my life has always been around helping and serving people. And specifically, my husband says that I'm just biased, and all I want to do is help women. And so, whatever, maybe I am, right? But
Right. So
that's
what?
the vision, right? That's the vision. And so, even in corporate arenas, I was always drawn to mentor and coach women who
Mm-hmm.
were looking to move forward. And so now this is on a bigger stage. And I think that people in general just need to think about their life's work, their
Yes.
organization's work, their company's work, right? Maybe sometimes things shift. That doesn't mean that things aren't on the same
Right.
path to the vision.
Right.
It is
Right.
you're just driving a different car.
Right, right. And you made me think of I have an alert that comes up on my phone every morning, and it's a prayer, and I would like to read it
Absolutely.
to share with anyone who's, listening and watching. And it says,
Please.
God, I don't need a perfect plan. I need wisdom for the next step and courage to take it. Guide me as I move. Simple.
Mm, yes.
Guide me as I move. But the key thing I think people overlook, you have to move. You have to move. You can't just say, okay, I'm waiting on God to show me. I'm just going to sit here. No, you have
Yes.
to move and trust that God will supply what you need to get to the next step. And the move may be going to a networking event. It may be going to meet with someone who you don't know and you're not sure. And what that move looks like, you instinctively know, like, gosh, I really need to do that, but I don't want to do it. I'm scared. Or I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm going to look foolish, or I'm going to look like a novice. No, God would meet you,
Yes.
in that faithful journey. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because that's a daily reminder to myself to
Yes.
to
Thank you so much
move.
for sharing. Thank you. So you said two things. One, you got to move. And two, the prayer talks about the next step, not the
Mhm.
next 25 steps. Like
Exactly.
the next
Oh, you
step.
got it. Just the
Yes.
next
Just
step.
the
And
next
we get
step.
so caught up on the 25 steps,
Yes. Yes.
you know?
And I think it was I know it was President Barack Obama who was talking and was saying, when you get to these tables where you feel intimidated before you get there, you get to these tables and you're like, oh, right,
Yeah.
I, I'm not, I'm just as smart as these folks. Like,
If not smarter.
right. What I saw from the outside
Yeah.
was, what I made up in my mind. So take the step,
Yeah.
go to the networking event, go to the class. You
Mm-hmm.
guys, Robin did an amazing, and Robin, you can let me know. I can't remember the gentleman's name you were working with. She did an amazing, I think it was 4-week workshop on podcasting in at one of our local municipalities.
Oh, that
And
was Rob. Yeah. Our audio engineer, Rob. Yes.
yes, and it was amazing. And you got to meet people that were doing things that you were doing as well. And there were people in that workshop from I just have a podcast idea to I actually
Mm-hmm.
have a podcast going.
Mm-hmm. We're
And
talking about like 50, 60 people every
yeah,
week.
yes.
I hadn't seen those types of numbers in years and years.
Yeah, but people, you got to connect. I walked in the
Mm-hmm.
room and was like, wait, why do I know some of these people? And I did not know that they wanted to do a podcast.
Right.
So I think it's just important that you are taking the next step and getting out of your comfort zone.
Right.
You know, So before we wrap up, I've got two more questions for you.
Sure.
The first question is there anything that you want to share with the audience that you've not shared or I've not asked that you think it's important that they hear?
Well, I think in general, knowing that your audience is primarily Black women,
Mhm.
I think in general, one thing that I like to share is having that self-confidence of that you can achieve what you want. You know, you may have a desire or you may have a goal or a vision for your life, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense at all. I can't do that. You have that desire for a reason. You know, some people may call it a calling, you know, but it's there for a reason. It's not happenstance that you're like, gosh, why do that makes no, that has nothing to do with my degree. You know, what am I doing over there? You know, and I think for a lot of women, we think, oh, my degree is in this. I've spent so much time over here. I don't want to wait. That's a waste of time to not go over there to go towards something, a vision I have in my head. I just want you to know that you can do it. And, you know, Dr. Ebony, you said hit the nail right on the head. Don't look at the 25 steps. Just look at the next step. Okay, what is the next step that I need to do, and break it down into what I call micro steps of, okay, today I'm going to reach out to 2 people who are in the field that I'm interested in. That's it. That's all I'm going to do today. I didn't hear back. Okay, now I'm going to look for an organization that speaks to the industry I'm trying to get into, I'm trying to sell to, whatever. Okay. And so those types of things I think is important. I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for the self-confidence that has been and continues to be instilled in me by the people in my life, by my community. So community is right up there, because if it wasn't for my community, I probably would not have pursued entrepreneurship, because it was community who was watching my kids while I was going to these events. You know, it was community who connected me with the financial resources to purchase the equipment for this business.
Yes.
So, you know, never underestimate saying, okay, this is what I need. I have the confidence to do it. I just need to connect with the people who could get me there. You know, it exists. What you want and what you desire exists. It's out there.
Yes, I love that. Okay, last question. I know you've got to get out of here. It's a question that I ask everybody, and that is, they're making a story of your life, right?
Yes.
You're no longer behind the camera. You are now the topic in front of the camera.
Yeah.
What would be the name of it? And if you know who would play you, who would play you?
I love this question, Dr. Ebony, first of all. Because I've always loved movies and different actresses. When I sat down and thought about this question, it's very easy what popped into my head. The name of the movie would be called Nevertheless, She Persisted. And that goes back to when we talk about obstacles, when we talk about being fluid in everything that has happened in my life, pivoting and all of those things. And I will be honored by, of course, anyone playing, but the number one actress for me who could really capture the emotion of my story and all of the lineage. Because when I say nevertheless, she persisted, I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, my great great grandmother, who I all know their names. And it was because my great grandmother persisted that I'm now sitting here. Yes. So it's not just my story, it's the lineage of women, of the matriarchs in my family who've instilled in me and got me to where I am. And the actress would be Viola Davis. I think Viola Davis is a chameleon. I think she is a force. I've seen her in so many different types of roles, on stage, on film. If you haven't listened to the audiobook of her personal story, everyone should.
Yes.
It's one of those books that I know I'm really enjoying a book when I start slowing down reading it because I don't want it to end.
Yeah.
That's what it was like for me. So that was an instant when I saw that question, I was like, oh, Viola Davis all day. And
She is a
nevertheless,
powerhouse.
yes, she persisted because the she is not just me. It's the women in my family who have laid the groundwork. And I actually have a picture up in my office. And when we opened up Motor City Woman in 2016, there was a picture on the wall of my great aunt, my grandmother, and my great grandmother standing down from our hometown in Alabama. And there were times when if I felt overwhelmed or really didn't know what direction I was going in, I would go stand and look at that picture. And I would say, no, she worked too hard and prayed too hard for me to have self-doubt. I can do this because she did it with less.
Yes. Listen, there is nothing else to be said, right? Nevertheless, she persisted. I think all of us have those women in our lives that we can look back to, just like you said, my mother, both of my grandmothers, I have, that's a whole other story, but I have innocent on my mother's side. And so, when you look at the women in our past who have persisted, I think it is incumbent on us to realize that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams.
That's right.
And we can continue to persist. So with that being said, Robin, thank you so much for being here today. If you don't take anything away from this, guys, I ask that you take away this. Nevertheless, she being you and everyone like us, everyone before us, nevertheless, she persisted. I love it. All right, guys. Until next time, keep spreading that Black girl magic on everything you do, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with me today. If this episode spoke to you, share it with another Black woman who needs this reminder. And don't forget to subscribe. You'll find links to my book, apparel, and speaking information in the show notes. Until next time, lead with intention and give yourself permission to pause. And you know what else? Keep spreading that Black girl magic on everything you do.